Thank you, George, and good morning, everybody. All right, let's get into this. So I'm Rajiv Rao, Chief Technology Officer for the State of New York, and I'm accountable for all of the engineering and the architectural work that goes on within the exec agencies for State of New York. So among those things comes the responsibility for designing and consolidating data centers as part of our scope. Let me see if this thing works here. Okay, here we go. So in 2012, our governor put together a commission called the SAGE Commission to understand how we could make government services more efficient. And in one of those work streams was an effort to consolidate IT, with the understanding that IT is completely horizontal across all the agencies. That means everybody needs it. All the agencies do have an IT component. It has the power to be transformational, help improve citizen experience, and it needed to be secure. So with those three verticals, thought processes, we started the idea of understanding our landscape. And what we identified first draft was about 53 data centers, 27 disparate email systems, 37, at least 37 CIOs across the agencies, no chief technology officer, no operations officer, and no CISO for the state. So we started to consolidate, come up with a plan to consolidate. The first task was to consolidate the data centers. Now, let me give you a context of what we were looking at in terms of 53 data centers. You were looking at over 140,000 square feet of raised floor space that we had across the state. You had over 40,000 plus servers, mostly physical. I'm not even going to count the network switches and ports we had because we just had a lot. And security, in terms of firewalling, we had everything and then some that probably you couldn't find even on eBay. So it was a gamut of things that we were dealing with. Then the email systems, we had 27 of those, and now these are 27 across state agencies that could not communicate with each other in some instances. Now that is a strange thing, when an email system cannot communicate with another. In government, you're expected to be able to have these open communications, and so this was one of the challenges we had. So that was the task for us to go forward with. So we started to build a data center out in the School of Nanoscience up in Albany. We ended up with a 40,000 square foot data center. It's rated for Tier 3 plus. It has a capacity for about 3.75 megawatts and currently hosts about, let's say, 20,000 servers. Most of them are virtual now. About 4,000 databases, and a lot of firewalling and security that I'm not going to talk about in detail here for obvious reasons. So the data center is what we now call our Excelsior Cloud. That's where we host 46 exec agencies. That includes Department of Taxation, DMV, public safety, all the public safety agencies, the health agencies, they're all in there. We have a secondary data center that is our backup data center that is used for off-site replication every night. So that's the physical aspect of things. Now, what do we have that we manage at scale here? About 1,600 miles of fiber that are across the state that connects all of our remote offices, which is about 5,000 of those across the state. We have about 17 million citizen IDs that we host and manage as the central identity store for the state. So that's the identity if you're a New Yorker, you're using to get your DMV registration renewed or get your tax filed or refund status looked at. So those IDs are hosted in that data center. The capacity of the data center, we kind of handle a lot of transactions right now. 50 million transactions, that's an average. That was about a month and a half ago, but that's growing exponentially. Applications, 4,500 and growing. This year's portfolio for projects is about $1.3 billion, so that's our new projects coming in. So those will obviously grow. So that's the scale of what we manage, and of course, don't forget the backups. We back up about 25 petabytes a night. This was again, and that's growing at about 15 to 20% year over year. So that's going to be climbing as well. So as of now, the consolidation is done. We have all our data centers in one place. They're all in Zen. We call it Zen, Excelsior Cloud. Everything is in there. We're now converging networks. So we had core routing in all of our agency buildings that had their own data centers. We moved the data centers. Now we're in the process of converging and collapsing all those cores. So we are going to a hub and spoke kind of environment where the remote offices just become remote offices, and all the compute, storage, and networking and firewalling is all handled within the Excelsior Cloud. So all exec agencies are going to go through there. All of our clients are also now egressing. So we're talking about 160,000 state employees. All of their egress ingress also goes through the Excelsior Cloud. So we have one place where we manage all of our policies for their web access, their IDS, IPS, all of that gets taken care of in one place. So that was phase one of our consolidation. As part of phase two, we started to go down this path where the agencies are looking for time to market. They want to be able to go quick. So the first thing they do is say, well, why can't I get what I can get from Amazon or Azure or Google, where I take a credit card, I go out there, and I can get some compute and we can go. So our efforts now are to start to go up the stack in terms of consolidation and start to provide things like containerization and catalog-based compute made available to the agency so they can start to deploy applications rapidly. It's been a little bit of a challenge. Agencies tend to still want to use the traditional VM. I need a VM, I need a server. I'm going to build my application stack, the web, the app tier, and the database tier. It's been a little bit of a learning curve. We've been holding workshops to try to get them to identify opportunities for microservices and building smaller components and reusing them rather than monolithic applications that they tend to want to do. So it's an interesting journey, and we're poised. We're getting ready to push agencies in that space. Here are some examples of what we've been working on using that new platform. Virtual hearings, I don't know how many of you know this, but that is one of the first in the nation in terms of what it does. It's workers' compensation. We do about 1,000 cases a day heard on a daily basis in terms of workers' comp. And in some cases, folks were traveling over 100 miles to be able to attend a hearing. Now, in certain cases, that can be challenging when you're injured and you cannot make it there or you don't have transport to get there. So this allows them to stay where they are, use an iPhone or an Android, and the attorney could be in their own office, and then the claims person and the judge are all in their own locations. They're all video conferencing and using that system to have this hearing. It has been highly successful and very, very beneficial for the citizens of the state of New York. Now, one of the challenges with that, though, was bandwidth. We all know what that is. When you're talking video conferencing, there's no guarantee on some of those things. Most of these offices and the remote offices that we're talking about where these court hearings are heard had limited bandwidth. In some cases, there were just T1s or even frame relays in some cases. So upgrading that and bringing resiliency into that became a challenge, but we started to work with some of our close vendors and started looking at technologies like SD-WAN and backup circuits. Certainly helped that cause there. So that's one of those that was highly successful. Now, the cyber intelligence is the other big benefit from our consolidation. Because we have one single point for egress ingress, now we start to collect all cyber data, about 7.2 million events a day. we collect from our data center. It gives us great insight into what's happening on our external side in terms of attempts, accesses, and whatnot. That previously used to be a fractured thing where you had 46 or 53 data centers. Everybody had their own little thing. There was no correlation. We had no good ecosystem to understand how and what was happening in that space. That's the foundation for that now. So that gives us the ability to start to correlate, start to do some machine learning and some AI in that space and get a little more proactive as we go forward. What else can I tell you about in that space? Plant inspection, that's another good one. So if for those of you folks who know, DEC does this work where they have to go inspect plants and make sure the strawberry bushes are the appropriate type and categorized correctly and all of that. They do that annually. They used to carry this big boatload of documents and books in their back of their car. They would flip through and match it to the plant to see that it was right? And it classified correctly. With that application, we transformed all that to be on a single iPad with all of their documentation and all of the cataloging done in one place. So it becomes a simple thing for them to walk around with just an iPad, do the inspection, and be done. That would not have been possible if we were still with the agency. We would have not had an opportunity to look at that and say, okay, we're going to change how we do that. Consolidation allows us to take opportunities like that and fix them. So it's been a fun ride for us so far. The other thing I want to talk about a little bit about is the AI and machine learning. So most of our agencies today tend to continue to use the traditional application platform, but interest is growing in digital assistance. DMV is a big one. Department of Taxation is another one. They want to offer services like this where you can ask a simple thing like, let's say, a driver's test. You wanted to get a practice test. You could have that interaction with an Alexa or a Google Home or whatever and start to have those questions be asked of you and do those practice exams. So small ideas like that, they want to start to explore that and look at the potential of digital assistance in that space, be it that or be it a tax where you're trying to find your refund or you're trying to understand what line 22 means in the 201 form, to be able to offer those kind of assistance. So that is another big push right now, is to try to get some AI and machine learning into our application stack. And so we've been starting to build a framework for these things in my office. I'll just give you some insight into the scale of what we operate at. So we have a few shared services that we have already consolidated. So identity is one big one, where all of the state's identity is in one place, not only for the citizens, but all of the state employees. So all 130,000 state employees who used to be in 63 disparate forests, for those of you who understand what that is, Active Directory and AD forests, are now consolidated into a single Active Directory. And so we have all of those users in one place, all of our citizens' IDs in another. And so that's consolidation. We have done consolidation of all of our content management platforms. So they used to be disparate systems, and this is a snapshot of what that looks like today. We have consolidated all of our API gateway services, getting in and out of the data center for services, single API gateway service for that now. All of the backup, we had 15 or 20 different types of backup softwares running, all going to one single backup software now. It's all backed up using one single platform. What else can I tell you about consolidation? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about content management here. That has been growing, as you can tell by the size there. We're about 2.5 billion objects and growing in that store. 23 agencies have got production data in there, and we've been growing at about 300% last quarter. So that is, object growth 300%, 2.8 billion objects. It's one of the largest ECM implementations in the world with the way it's set up. It's the benefit of our consolidation. We decommissioned, I think, about 8 or 10 content management solutions as of now, and we continue to consolidate. This is not completely done yet. I talked about API services. That's what we do. We handle quite a bit of transactions through there, and that is still not fully mature, but it's growing. It's growing rapidly. 40 million transactions per month and counting. Now, these are all high availability services, just so we're clear. We run these active-active between 2 data centers. I said we built 1 data center. The secondary data center, which is our off-site data center, is also hosting some of our critical services like this, where it runs an active-active with a GTM overlay, so we don't have disruption of services. Monitoring, I don't have to talk about monitoring with you guys. It's an essential component of running a data center. We had multiple monitoring systems. We have now standardized on a couple. Again, there's a challenge because not every monitoring system works across all the platforms and operating systems. So it gives you a snapshot of what we have monitoring. We have about 239 terabytes of online data right now that we are actually correlating against. We collect about almost 3 terabytes of data every day in terms of event logs and logs. On an hourly basis, or every 4 hours, I think we have about 6,000 servers checking in on their heartbeat. It's a good snapshot of the scale at which we are running at this point in time. And that keeps growing. This is purely in 1 data center. This is not across multiple data centers. All right, and another part of that monitoring is obviously the cyber threats. I talked about 7.2 million events a day. Not everything is bad, but not everything is good either. So that requires us to be as proactive as we can be. And you're not going to see great detail in this slide for obvious reasons. It's zoomed out for a reason. But we do keep track of what's happening in the environment and what the baseline looks like on a daily basis. We have a SciComm team that's about 60 strong. That is, their full-time job is to monitor security for the state of New York. Application monitoring, this has been a challenge, but we're making headway. This was a program the governor initiated last year, I think. Yes, Excelsior program. It's a scholarship program. And the reason I'm talking about this is purely to demonstrate elasticity. When we started, this came to us, I think, 15 days notice that they wanted an application built for students to be able to apply for this loan. For some reason, everybody decided that they all had to apply at that 1 minute after it opened. Otherwise, they were not going to get a scholarship. So the graphs clearly indicate the ramp up of that workload as it came in, and we maintained a 4 millisecond response time right through it. Now, if this was running in State Ed's data center, there was no way they would have been able to sustain that. Because of the consolidation and the compute capacity that we have, we are easily able to scale this out and support it without having to do too much in terms of procurement or re-architecting the application. Just throw more compute at it, and off we go. All right, here's another one, and you know this. Last year when Google put that out there showing its voter registration, it's a clear indication of what happened to our systems on that day. Because you can tell by that graph there, we jumped up almost 800% in terms of load coming in on that day for folks registering because Google said so, right? It's a clear indication of, things will happen like that. You're not going to be able to predict. But if you're running a data center, you have to be ready. And if we are taking on the responsibility of IT for the state, we have to be able to scale and deliver because the agency is not going to understand why that's not being done. You just have to do it, right? So that's an example of, it's a benefit, and it also is, it can be a curse at times. If it doesn't work, then you took our money, you took our compute, and now you're not doing a good job. So it's a double-edged sword at times. All right, what's in the future for us? We're starting to make options available to our agencies, our clients, We call them clients. In the form of a catalog, so there's no more pick up the phone and ask for something. We want you to drive it through a catalog, self-service and self-provisioning more often than not. So we want to shift this left as much as possible, so folks have the ability to request resources, help themselves rather than us unlocking passwords, let them do their own resets and things like that. So a little more automation as much as we could do. It just helps them get to their services a lot quicker than we would. With that, I'm going to stop here. If there's any questions, there may be a couple of questions I could take. Yes? How far is your active? 100 miles. I know I would like it to be 120, but that was the closest we could get to 120. Anything else? No? Yes? Don't quote me on that, but about 47 of them are, yes, closed. And we have recovered. So we're consuming, at 3.75 megawatts, we're consuming about 1 megawatt in terms of power right now. If you look at our previous bill, we're about paying, probably for power and cooling, we're paying about $50,000 a month, which is a significantly less cost than it used to be when we were running 53 data centers. So we're very efficient, very green at this point in time. And as virtualization goes in and density goes in, we're going to get even better. So this is fun stuff. Yep. Anybody? Yes? How long was the journey you started when you were? So we started the commission in 2012. We started to build the data center in 2013. 2014, we got possession of the data center, and we started. So in about 3.5, 4 years, we got to the point where we were done with the data center consolidation. Now we're starting to go up the stack on application and application rationalization. Great question. The 46 executive agencies today, but yes, conversations are ongoing with the cities and the local governments as well. Two options. One is colo, and then the other is shared services that we would like to start to offer. I'm not going to restrict. It's going to be open for the state of New York. Yeah. Yes. Yes, completely. Let's just say we didn't have any single data center that was even close to a tier 3 rated data center. That was the other reason for doing data center upgrades, yeah.
When you consolidated to the 2 data centers, did you do traditional white space or did you do modular solutions, a combination of both?
Traditional. Yeah.
Why wouldn't you do modular?
When we were looking down this path, we didn't have the time to do modular. We would have loved to do modular. If we were given a chance to do that now, I would not only do modular, I'd also be architecting for hybrid. Good?
Really good.
Thank you.